Welcome to this series of creating AI-powered adaptive card web parts. My name is Hugo Bernier, and today I will be continuing this super long series. Previously on our series, we showed you how to build an adaptive card web part. We showed you how to build a custom property pane. We showed you how to make it UI theme aware so that it reacts to changing colors of your site. And today we're going to show you how we can actually use AI to power the layout creation of your adaptive cards. This series is really about taking small chunks, small bite-size episodes where we show you basically how to add every bells and whistles to your web parts. And of course, bells and whistles must include AI nowadays. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so let's start with a demo. Boop. Okay, so I have my fancy workbench, and I will add my web part here. Again, this adaptive card web part allows you to build adaptive cards. I'll just click on the configure button. And again, we showed previously that we'll be able to connect to different data sources. In this case, I'm just going to use no data, and we can actually edit the template. Now, the template is empty, and I've previously showed how I can just copy and paste adaptive card templates, but we now have the ability to add fancy AI stuff. So let me just see if I can think of something clever here. Let's say build me an adaptive card that shows the weather forecast. There you go. So what we should see here is, if the demo gods are with me, cool, it's going to go to AI. It's going to kind of come up with a web part, an adaptive card, and it will render it for me. Now, one of the things that we've done is we've made it so that it allows me to go edit the adaptive card or to make additional comments on what's been provided so that I can update the adaptive card. So for example, can you make the location Barrie, Ontario, which is where I live? Now, it's not actually going to pick up the weather, the actual weather, because it's probably about minus 72 right now here. Speaking of which, can you switch to Celsius? And it should be quickly adapting things. Now, I don't want to make the entire demo about this, because the important part here is that we're illustrating how to use AI to actually generate things. But you can see, again, it has the context of the adaptive card that's being rendered. It allows me to actually quickly make updates and things like that. I could say go fix typos. I could copy and paste and do things like that. But let's just apply that, and let's go back to our code to show how we've actually done this. All right. Code. All right, so the first thing we should probably talk about is before we do this, we should show how the conversation happens, right? So basically what I do is I say, make me an adaptive card that would show Beau's profile, for example. I haven't picked on Beau in a while, so let's do that. And then if I was just using a regular AI conversation with most models, it would return something like this, right? It would say, here's an adaptive card, and then it would use kind of the markdown convention to show a block of, in this case, JSON code that would contain the adaptive card. And I could do that. It would be easy. The only problem is I would have to actually, excuse me, browse, not browse, but parse the response to extract the JSON, which is not exactly what I'm looking for. So here's what would happen is I would get the text and I would get the JSON, and then I would have to personally figure out what's going on so I can separate the part that goes into the adaptive card, the Monaco editor, the Visual Studio Code editor that's in the page, and the part that renders the adaptive card, and then the rest of the chat would show on the left. But I don't want to do that. I'm the world's laziest developer. So, oops, don't know what's happening here. The other thing that I could do, I apologize for that red thing there. The other thing that I could do is I could actually say, well, and this is actually what Copilot suggested to me. It said, hey, you should really do this. You should tell it, respond in this format, right? Message, and then put the message here, and adaptive card, and put the full adaptive card JSON here. And then when I would send this instruction, then when the user sends a message like make me an adaptive card that show Bo's profile, it would actually do something like this. Come on. There you go. It would return me something like this, right? Message and adaptive card. Now, the problem is with this, you can probably see that right away, and I really need to kill those animations, is what happens if I'm trying to parse the message itself by text, and I'm looking for placeholders like adaptive card. And in the prompt or in the response, it decided to include the word adaptive card multiple times. How do I know which section I should be using? So it's probably not a good idea to rely on purely text to do this. Another way to do this is to actually tell it, give me a response in a structured way. So give me a JSON object that gives me a response that will include the message, and that will include the adaptive card as two very distinct components. That way, I don't have to actually parse plain text. I can actually just parse JSON, and I'm really good at parsing JSON. And so then what would happen is when I ask, just to change things up a little bit, make me an adaptive card that shows the weather forecast, which is a demo I just showed you, it would actually send me a JSON structure with the message. Here's an adaptive card that displays, and then the actual adaptive card itself. Ooh, that's fancy there. The adaptive card, even though I have the word adaptive card, right? I don't have to worry about looking for hard-coded string in my text because I'm parsing JSON, which is cool. All right. So this is kind of how it works. Let's go. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to show you. Let's go back here. I had built this gratuitous animation for you. So here's the thing, though. The benefit of asking it to give me a structured output is that if I use a streaming endpoint where I want the AI to actually type the message as it gets the information back, this is something that would look like this. It would say here, but in the message, but in the adaptive card, it would start building the JSON. So here's an adaptive card, blah, 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 right? It continues building both the message and the adaptive card parts of the structured output. That's something that's not really well documented. When you ask for structured output, you might think that it's streaming JSON and you're going to get incomplete JSON. But no, as a general rule, you'll always get complete JSON in your structured output. It's just that, again, in the case of my adaptive card, where I'm actually asking for a stringified JSON structure, that JSON inside of the adaptive card node might not be completed yet. So how do we do that? Well, here you go. Take a look at the code. I'll just pause for 10 minutes while you read that. Or I could just maybe tell you what I'm doing. All right, so the first thing is I have a function called chat for adaptive card because I'm a real original person with my naming convention. And the first thing I do is I give it system instructions. Now, these system instructions are, they're not quite optimized yet. I wanted to keep it simple, but I'm basically telling it, hey, you're going to help me build Microsoft Adaptive Cards, and you have to respond to me using this JSON schema. And the JSON schema goes as follows. So you're going to send me a message. Oops. You're going to send me a message and an adaptive card. Now, the message is going to be really short, user-friendly explanation. And then the adaptive card has to be a string. Now, I spent a lot of time trying to expect JSON, right? Because it's telling me it's going to send me JSON. Understand that if you're using streaming endpoints, you might not get complete JSON inside of that node. So just process it as a string as long as you can. And then I tell it, don't wrap the JSON with backticks or code fences, and don't include any other properties. Cool. Now, the cool thing about that is I can separately build the user's request. And if I have a current adaptive card JSON, I can pass it the current adaptive card as well. So it's able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Iterate on the adaptive card. Like I ask it, hey, can you just change it to Celsius, or can you change the location? And then I'm building basically the structure here that I'm going to send. In this case, I'm using OpenAI responses, where I'm telling it that the format I'm expecting is going to be JSON. So the format, JSON. I need to give it a name, so I'm calling it an adaptive card chat result. Again, did I mention I'm very original in my naming convention? Then I give it the schema. And the schema is going to be an object that I don't want any of the other additional properties. And the properties are going to be, here's the message that I want, which is going to be a string. And here's my adaptive card, which is going to be a string as well. Now, it's always helpful when you give it a schema to describe the various elements, just to help it understand, again, the context of what it's returning it. And I'm telling it that I need absolutely always a message and an adaptive card, even if they are empty. And then when I'm building the body for my message, I'm sending it the model. Later, you'll show that we'll add a model selector. So the model is not hard-coded. The instructions that I've built before to tell it how to resend the information, as well as the messages that I want to send. I'm using a temperature here that doesn't allow it to go too crazy and creative. And then I tell it that I'm expecting text. Now, the cool thing about that is now all I need to do is actually just send a post message to AI using create. Now, in future calls, we'll show you how we've separated Azure OpenAI, and any other AI provider that we want, because that's how cool this web part's going to be. But then what we do is we actually parse the JSON response that we got. Again, the JSON response is going to include both a message and an adaptive card. And that's it. So this is what I get when I send this request. It gives me a message and it gives me an adaptive card. Now the adaptive card, again, is encoded to fit inside of a JSON. So what we do is if we take that JSON here and we escape it, whatever the proper word is, we will get something like this, which is an actual adaptive card JSON structure. Now you could absolutely do exactly the same thing for whatever structure you wanted. I think in previous calls, I've showed how I could do mermaid diagrams and things like that. But here, what I'm asking it to do is very specific to adaptive cards. But of course, you could use the same approach to build any kind of structure you want. And then one last thing that I wanted to show you is that when I send stuff to AI, which again, with my fancy naming convention, handle sent to AI, I get the prompt, I get the current card JSON that I pass, and then I call my chat to adaptive card web part. I clear any other error messages that I may have, but then this is the one trick that I've learned When I get the adaptive card, which is a JSON structure, and I set the value to actually show it in both the adaptive card Monaco editor, the Visual Studio Code editor window that you see, as well as the adaptive card preview, I actually format it. I do it on a little timeout because I need about 50 milliseconds for it to update its information. But behind the scenes, I actually tell it, go format the document so it always looks like pretty JSON. That's just a little trick I've learned. Otherwise, I would be trying to format the JSON myself and it wouldn't look pretty. So key takeaways, ground your LLM. Remember, grounding is actually telling it, here's the information that you are going to need that you might not have. Here's the information you're going to need to provide context to our conversation. In my case, I'm grounding it with the adaptive card structure that may have already been provided. Use structured outputs to separate chat from code. Now, you're not limited to 2 different nodes in your structured output. I could have a section for the chat message, one for the code, and maybe one to I don't know, tell me what version of or what iteration of the code it is so that I can actually go back in history and take snapshots or something. Assume that the code that is returned may be incomplete, and then don't try to format the code yourself. What's left to do, though, is we still have to think about these things. In my code right now, because I'm using streaming and I'm calling OpenAI directly from my web part, I actually have my API keys in the client-side code, which is not good. Don't put the API keys in the client-side code, and I will show you later how to get rid of that. I still have to handle streaming. We want to add a conversation ID to actually be able to go back to our previous conversation. We'll show you that later. And don't always send the adaptive card JSON if it isn't needed because I'm using tokens that I shouldn't be using every single time. And later, we'll actually provide additional data context because you may have seen earlier that my web part will allow you to have different data structures that can be passed. I want to include that as part of my grounding so that it knows how to handle the data structure. And of course, I will need to provide way more exciting examples of adaptive cards. Otherwise, it's always going to be very boring. So we went through AI-powered layout creation. Next time, we're going to show you how to connect to various data providers so that we can make these templates rich and dynamic. That's it for me. For more information, you can go to adaptive cards and then the structured model outputs that I showed you. There's a cool article on OpenAI that shows you how to do that. It's also available for Azure OpenAI. But that's it for me.